Hello everyone, this is Robin. So I'm here again with you, and today I have decided to start my video with an interesting riddle. Now, what is that riddle? So, the riddle is you guys tell me what is that thing with you ever since the human civilization came into existence. Means you don't know the exact period of time from when this very thing was first recorded. So before you go and search the answer to this riddle, let me give you some hints. It is probably not the physicalities of the universe like sun, moon, earth, mountains, river, nothing like that. The answer lies in the aspect of human life. It is a part, or I can say it is an inseparable part of society. I know you may find the answer to this, but in the interest of time, let me share the answer to this, and this will be the topic of today. So, the answer of this riddle is crime. You got surprised? Yes, you must be. It is only the crime which has been with us from the time immemorial, which means we don't know when it was first reported or recorded, and therefore we always construe it as the permanent or the inseparable part of the society. Now, the next question arises after that, when we have already decided and concluded that this is something which you cannot alienate from the society and with which we have to live throughout the life, then what is the use of public policies? What is the use of those number of efforts are made, especially for the purpose of exterminating this very evil aspect of society? Let me tell you, it is though inseparable part of the society, but it has to be controlled to a certain extent. When the crime leads in the society, then the entire society goes to decline. This means it goes to its degeneration stage and ultimately collapses after a certain period of time. And therefore, to control the crime is very important through public policies. However, it is also true that it cannot be completely exterminated, that I've already told you in the beginning of this video. So, as usually, what I do, I start my video by dividing a topic or a concept into its some headings or in its subheadings if it is there, in order to make it more conceivable to you, more understanding to you, so that by the end of this video you must have something with you on which you can discuss, on which you can ponder over in your free time, and you can go along with your personal ideas, what you think, and share with your friends and families. So let's begin with today's video. I have divided this very crime, the concept of crime, into 3 or 4 headings. The first heading, the concept itself, in which we will deal the possible aspects of crime and how it is impactful. We will also deal with this on the on the personal life. Second is we will try to understand crime from some important definitions. These important definitions are somewhere very important because these are propounded, yes, so by a number of jurist experts. So we cannot overlook these important, words spoken by these expert jurists. on the concept of crime, and the third is we will look how a crime can be differentiated from the word deviance or deviation. This word deviation and deviance may be a bit intricate for you, especially when we are talking about a crime. So I will deal it in the time when we reach to this very segment of the video. And the fourth, which is not the least, we will talk the most interesting part of the crime, and that is whether crime is functional or not. So we will also deal with this at the end of this video. So without wasting any single second, let's move to the concept of the crime. Guys, I have discussed this already with you in the beginning of the video, that crime is always with us. In fact, it is with the society forever, and therefore it has to be understood from this particular point of view. So when we deal with the concept of the crime, we understand its important features first, and one among its few important features is its relative nature. Now you might be surprised why I am using this word relative when I am discussing the crime with you. Trust me, crime is relative in its nature. If you really find out the relativity nature of it, then understand this with one example. You guys know adultery in our country, India, is treated as a criminal wrong. You go and check number of cases. In fact, in our IPC, Indian Penal Code 8060, we have a provision for section 497 that deals with adultery separately, and we have some rigorous punishment provisions for the one who commits adultery. So ultimately this particular act is constituted as a criminal wrong against the person, and the person who is victimized has a full right to track the person in the court and to impose liabilities on him, and there is no damage has to be paid. Damage may be there as a fine, but punishment is always the provision for the criminal wrong. Now when we deal this adultery, the same act, especially in UK, this becomes a civil wrong, and remedy for the civil wrong is only the damage. Any person who commits adultery to any person or other person or a second party, the only remedy is here that the person can take a relief by paying the announced fine or damage, whatever is decided by the court. So look at the nature of this one act, that is adultery. In one part of this particular act is a criminal wrong in one country, where it becomes a civil wrong in other country, and that is what is called the relativity of the crime. You guys understand with this? So therefore crime is relative in its nature. Later on we will also try to associate and understand it when we will understand one important definition of the crime. So this is what we second important aspect of the crime, that crime is very useful for what? To understand the social culture of a society at a particular point of time. Yes, criminal policy alone can help you to understand the social conduct of an individual living at a certain point of time, because it gives a clear picture of the society. It captures a clear image of the society, which includes its demands, their persuasions, and their all everything which a human possesses. So these two important things are pretty much discussed in the concept of crime. One, its relative nature, and the second, its utility, its usefulness. For what? To understand the society and its cultural practices at a certain period of time. Now, the second headings which I have already discussed with you under this topic, and that is to understand the crime from two important definitions. There are a number of definitions being given on the concept of crime, but these two definitions are actually separated in its nature because it actually consists of different ingredients altogether. Different ingredients means that first it is divided into two particular kind of you can say uh, ways. First is the legal definition and the second is sociological definition. We will discuss legal definition after sociological definition. Now, what is that sociological definition? Sociological definition, as the name suggests, somewhere gives us a hint of a social connection to this. And when you talk about social, we talk about the society ultimately. In a society, we have people living in it because the unit of the society is a family, you know. And ultimately, when number of families living in a particular defined area, the entire area is called to be a society for a person living in that. So, any person living in a society has a certain value, and when these values are violated, ultimately it is treated as an act of crime according to the sociological definition. So, how we can understand sociological definition of crime is only through the understanding of how the values of a particular individuals are violated in a society. So, in one particular sentence, if I am to conclude the definition of a crime from the sociological point of view, that will be the violation of values of an individual living in the society is called a sociological definition of this crime. Clear? Let's move to the next definition, and that is the legal definition. Legal definition is much supported because entire social order is regulated by law today. We have constitution. Every country has its own constitutions. Number of rules written in a book, and these books give and provide the way how an individual should conduct in their life. So the definition goes along that any particular law written in a book, when violated by an individual, ultimately defined as a violation of law, and that combinedly form as a definition of legal. You understand this? So legal definition of crime means violation of any rule that is given in a book and for which there is a provision of punishment is called the legal definition of crime. That's it. Now, which definition is given much weightage is very much easy to understand. For example, sociological definition totally depends upon the violation of values, and since its dependency is on the violation of values, when we know that values are just relative in its nature, as we have discussed before, values and moralities are relative in its nature. Let me give you one example in order to strengthen this very concept of how values are also relative in nature. You guys know, before the introduction of 1833 Chartered Act, William Bentinck came in India. We had a cultural practice so much ingrained to Indian society was the sati pratha, and this was for almost a long years. under practice, in which number of women after the decease of their husband were put to the fire and they were burnt alive. These values at a certain point of time were apotheosized, were a point of respect or a subject of respect. No one was there to disregard these values, despite of the fact that this involved high degree of cruelty and barbarity, but it still existed in the society, and women of this country continued to be a victim of this very cultural practices, as it was based on values. Now, today, we don't have this practice anymore. What it suggests that its relative nature. So, therefore, sociological definition only based on the violation of values, and values are just just relative in nature. What is crime today cannot be crime tomorrow, and therefore sociological definitions are not given importance in today's society. Let's move to the third heading of this video after this, and that third heading is how crime is differentiated from deviance. Now, let me first introduce this word deviance with some clarification on it so that you guys could understand something about it, what I'm saying. Deviance means to be off the path. We usually use this term deviation, or we get deviated, which means we are being diverted from a particular action to a certain action, and which means deviation. Now, how it should be understood in this context: when a particular rule is being followed by the majority of people, and one among that majority comes out and violates that particular law, becomes deviant. You understand that? Now, any person who violates a rule that is followed by the majority is called deviant. Now, how it could be differentiated from the word crime or criminal? See, crime is a very larger concept, and it subsumes what? Deviation in it. So, for example, crime as a concept is a bigger field in which comes the part deviation. Any person who is deviated is not always treated differently from members in the society. Let me give you an example. What happens when a person driving vehicle under influence of intoxication and subsequently breaks the signal? That person is also someone who has committed kind of crime here, but that particular image and overall his conduct is not seen as someone who has committed something bigger crime, and therefore that person is not treated differently from others, which means this person continues to be part of the society, and therefore this deviation is or looks like more lighter, especially in its nature, in its degree. When we understand the criminal is one who is not treated, you know you can say, who is treated differently from other members in the society. because crime like murder, theft, rape ultimately, makes the person so much, you can say, uh, detestable, you know, that people don't want to meet him. Then in that condition, what happens? The person is treated as a criminal. I have discussed so far with you two things: crime and its deviation. So, deviation means a crime, but not with high degree with which a person continues to have its personal existence in the society, and the person is not treated differently from others, whereas one who does crime becomes a subject to punishment, and ultimately he is seen differently from other members of the society, and therefore the state takes charge against him and do all possible thing to give punishment for the person act. Now the last heading of this very topic, crime, is whether the crime is functional or not. What do you think, guys? Can a crime be a functional or not? Crime is a functional. It is surprising, but yes, it is. Crime is functional in two ways. We have already discussed the nature of the crime and the aspect of this particular crime, and we have already understood its prevalence in the society right from the time which we don't know from where it was first recorded. Then it's somewhere, you know provides sustainability to the social order. Crime is itself very much abhorring in its nature, and therefore it actually ignites people. You can say it ignites solidarity in the people to come together and fight against it. Crime on the one side is an evil act, and which has to be, you know battled by a number of people living in the society. So ultimately, this very crime provides a reason to number of people to come together against it, and that's how the society comes in a more orderly manner. In this way, we call crime provides certain progress to the society, because ultimately the crime is only the reason for why people are coming together, why people actually, go and unite together, just because of they have to fight against the crime. And in this way, crime is functionality in its nature. So here the video on this concept, I hope you will like it, and please understand the concept which I have dealt in some detail. Thank you very much.